Alright, so back in 2019, Mystic Umbreon made a countdown of the worst Pokemon introduced in Pokemon Sword and Shield. NaiTaiDai and Melantart covered that video in a co-op, and Umbris covered that video in a commentary of her own. Now, I responded to the same video last year, though my video wasn't particularly great, and NaiTaiDai also responded to Umbris's video, and he says that apparently my commentary on the same video inspired him to make his own, so I feel like I should give some form of response, because I don't particularly like this video at all. Also, I know this video has been disowned, and several others are planning on covering it, but here I am, and here we go.
To be honest, I don't believe this will be my best received commentary of the year, and will be highly surprised if it doesn't get on Doodle's worst of list at the end of the year, even as an honorable mention.
Considering how ratioed this video was, at least I can say that he's kinda self-aware.
Today we ask the age-old question.
What the dog doing?
Pokemon Sword and Shield, I can say are some of the most enjoyable Pokemon games I've ever played. The cast of Pokemon in these games is actually very good to me. And I can be honest, I like the majority of these Pokemon. More like literally all of them besides 10. Even with the 10 I don't like, these Pokemon aren't even the worst Pokemon I've ever seen. There are much worse Pokemon like this stupid looking thing. The majority of the Pokemon in the decks have great designs and concepts behind them. Heck, even the fossils are cleverly made despite how much Arceus hated them. But yeah, I think you guys know where I'm coming from. I'm talking about the not so great Pokemon in these games. If you haven't read the title already or haven't guessed it, I'm going to be talking about the top 10 worst Pokemon in Sword and Shield. In the past where I've made worst Pokemon lists, it got brutal for some Pokemon. I can say what I will say, won't be nice about some of these Pokemon because obviously it's a worst Pokemon list, but you won't see the amount of brutality like how I do with Electrode and Torterra. Which by the way, for all you Torterra fans out there, you guys know I'm not a huge fan of Torterra. I like Torterra more than some Pokemon on this list though. It's not the worst Pokemon in the world. Anyways, enough about Torterra. Let's just get into what I think are the top 10 worst Pokemon in Sword and Shield.
We aren't even at the first point yet, and I already found an issue. This part of Umbreon's video lasted over a minute, and it could have easily been sped up to a solid 40 seconds. I don't know what editor you use, but it's safe to say that there is an option to speed up clips in there. This is just padding out your video to an obnoxious degree.
So why didn't you fast forward?
Because if she did fast forward, then the point of this goes on for over a minute would make no sense, since then the video wouldn't be dragging out for over a minute at that point. Like, context in a commentary kinda has to match the point that follows it.
Oh joy, he goes right into the list without giving any sort of criteria. Surely a good sign of things to come.
Who died and made you the queen of countdowns? Because last time I checked, you don't need criteria for a countdown.
You kinda do. Otherwise, the countdown is going to be a royally confusing mess, and the person is going to come off as if they put stuff on their list for unrelated reasons.
But realistically speaking, what would be so confusing about worst Galarian Pokemon? Mystic doesn't really have to explain past worst Galarian Pokemon, since essentially all that needs to be said is, these are Galarian Pokemon that Mystic doesn't like, considering how almost all of his points are design critiques. Like, in a vacuum, the point that Nai makes here is a good point, since sometimes countdowns do need criteria, but this is just not one of those times.
Today we ask the age-old question.
What the dog doing?
Coming up next is a Pokemon that may seem a little controversial, and that choice is going to be Dubwool. Now don't get me wrong, I love Wooloo and everything it stands for. The design, the cry, and of course the best part about it, the shiny. Dubwool though? This didn't come out the way I wanted it to. Like, I was expecting more of a Tauros kind of ram, not a big fat fluff ball.
I mean, it's a sheep. What would you expect it to look like?
I was expecting it to look like Barack Obama.
Patience, dear. Let's let me explain.
The fuck did you just call me?
Please don't kick me in the dick.
I'm calling the police.
Considering you skipped over our entire opening bit, this was in reference to an earlier gag.
What the heck is even going on anymore?
Greetings, lost children. Melantart here with my friend, NaiTaiDai. So as you already know from that opening bit, Nai here brought me a video from a Poketuber named Mystic Umbreon called Top 10 Worst Pokemon in Sword and Shield. And I fucking hated it. So here we are. Nai might have intended for me to do this as a solo comm, but I convinced him to do a co-op with me.
Well, I am helping write the script and editing this thing, so I may as well be... My back.
Break the fourth wall again, and it'll be your dick next time.
So you're giving context and explaining the joke, but Umbris's joke still makes sense with the limited context that she gave in her video. Since in her context, Melon gets mad and Nai gets scared, so that's where the "I'm calling the police" came from. The fact that Melon threatens Nai. More context isn't necessary.
Our fault for not fully understanding what Mystic was saying. I suppose we interpreted him saying this isn't what I expected as this isn't what I wanted, I made the incorrect assumption that because Wooloo is a puffball, its evolution would have naturally followed suit.
Regardless, Melon still questioned Mystic's expectations when he straight up said what they were, and also, this point feels dangerously close to excuse territory, since instead of debunking points, you're explaining where your mindset came from in the original video. Sure, you had an explanation for believing what you believed, but that really doesn't justify anything though.
Speaking of Pikachu, up next is Morpeko, which I can safely say is my least favorite of the Pikachu clones. With this design, I feel Game Freak just took Pikachu's cheeks, eyes, and ears, and slapped it on with a black and brown color scheme. It looks so copy-pasted, and that's what makes me a little upset about this design. Pikachu clone design this generation could have been much better. I was expecting more of like an electric groundhog typing or something. To me, that would have been a much better idea. The typing of electric and dark was also reserved for one type of Pokemon that unfortunately didn't make it in the Sword and Shield, being Luxray. Not saying they can't give Luxray some kind of form in the future with electric and dark, but it's the premise of it should have gotten that dual typing first, rather than Morpeko.
Any citation?
Not really. He just thinks therapy with 3D models, and creates someone else's description before promoting himself.
Well, anyway, you do realize that if what you're saying is true, then that would have been a horrible idea, right? Being an electric type means Luxray only has one major weakness, ground, which isn't affected by electric moves. If it were electric dark, then it would have 4 weaknesses instead of 1. Ground, fighting, bug, and fairy. Just being mono-electric is a good thing for Luxray. Jesus, you're supposed to be a Pokemon channel, yet a scrub like me can tell you why that would have been a bad idea.
Citation towards what? The fact he personally thinks that Luxray should have gotten a dual electric dark type in? Citations towards the typings of Morpeko? Citations towards Pepper's secret hentai stash? What are you talking about? Also, God, why do you commentators care so much about how well a Pokemon can survive a fucking tsunami?
Okay, this is the point that a lot of people who checked my script argued about. Yes, you could argue that a dark-type Luxray would have the major advantage against psychic types and ghost types. However, it would still face 3 major weaknesses in fairy, fighting, and bug-type Pokemon, as well as ground. That is why we cared. We felt the cons outweighed the pros.
So I guess we're cutting context now.
Why do you commentators care so much about how well a Pokemon can survive a fucking tsunami? I swear to God, like, my dude, Umbreon just said he wished Luxray got an electric dark type in. Why shouldn't he care about the fact that Luxray has more of a chance of fucking dying? It makes sense why he'd want Luxray to be electric dark. Luxray looks like he came straight out of a furry emo boy band from the 2000s. And he's black. Like Barack Obama. Also, can I just point out that just because Umbreon is a PokeTuber doesn't mean he has to go into the nitty-gritty details of the Pokemon's competitive capabilities. At the end of the day, it's an aesthetic choice he thought Luxray should have.
Umbris's point was that even if the dark electric typing would hinder Luxray from a competitive standpoint, the electric dark typing is still fitting from a design standpoint, which would be a perfectly fine reason to give it that typing. And I actually agree with her here because gameplay does not overtake lore. Though if I can hit Umbris's point for a second, because I did not point this out in my original video, no one ever said that Mystic had to go into detail about the competitive scene. Instead, the point was that he needs to show citations, even if that point is very vague. The point was also about how the dark electric type would hinder Luxray, but that point doesn't necessarily mean, oh, they need to go into nitty-gritty details.
Today we ask the age-old question.
What the dog doing?
Morpeko doesn't deserve this typing. I don't think this is as harsh as I have been to other Pokemon and worse Pokemon videos, so I will consider this as mild.
You can't be serious. Morpeko is bad because it has the type combination of a Pokemon you seem to prefer? What sense does that make?
But I thought you said Luxray was a mono-electric type.
Being an electric type means Luxray only has one major weakness.
What was that? Yeah, just play back what Minna was saying in response to Mystic saying that Morpeko doesn't deserve to be a dark type, without refuting what she said that it's beneficial for Luxray to be a mono-electric type.
No, she was giving context for her point about Melon contradicting herself. Since Melon's wording of Morpeko is bad because it has the type combination of a Pokemon you seem to prefer could imply that Luxray is already a dark type, since she says that Morpeko has the typing of a Pokemon he seems to prefer, that being Luxray. However, Melon also claims that Luxray is a pure electric type. Umbris could have elaborated on her point more, but you could still come to a conclusion with what is given.
Dreadnought is a Pokemon I haven't really been super fond of since the day I laid my eyes on it. At this point in time in the Pokemon franchise, we have way too many turtle Pokemon. Turtonator was last gen, then before that Caracosta, and then Torterra. I think it's time to stop with Turtlemons for a while.
I agree. We need to stop having all these Pokemon based on the same type of animal a long time ago. Birds, fish, rodents, bugs. We certainly didn't need so many just based on one species.
Your examples actually suck. Let's just ignore that every type of Pokemon you mentioned are Pokemon that appear in every gen. They're part of the series tradition, you nunts.
Plus, there are a lot of things you can do with rodents, birds, fish, and bugs.
And there are a lot of things you can do with turtles, like what we go over in our video on Mystic.
Torterra is based on the world tortoise. Caracosta is based on the soft-shell sea turtles. Turtonator is a Matata turtle, and Dreadnought is an alligator snapper.
Oh, look at that. Concepts for Pokemon based on turtles and tortoises.
But Umbris didn't say that you can't do a lot with turtles. She was making it clear that her point was focusing on the examples. And this is yet another instance of cutting context.
Plus, there are a lot of things you can do with rodents, birds, fish, and bugs. I'll get to that last one in a second, as they have barely scratched the surface on those types of animals. And I want to dwell on the bug part because that's a large issue of that. It's a literal type. If they didn't add any more bug types, then the bug type would practically be obsolete.
Being dishonest in a commentary does not make you an epic gamer.
One of my biggest reasons as to why I don't like Thwackey is because it wasn't introduced in Alola with Passimian and Oranguru. This would have been the perfect Alolan Pokemon. If it debuted in Alola as a completely separate Pokemon, I would have had less of a problem with it. It's just the fact that you have such a great evolution line with Grookey in the final evolution, but the Pokemon in between just looks like it just doesn't belong. It's literally a separate Pokemon from this line. Go back in time, put Thwackey in Alola, then boom, our problem is solved. I mean, it just screams Alola. The facial features look like a Hawaiian mask. I can't be the only one who sees this.
What? How? How doesn't it look like it belongs?
The more this woman talks, the more my brain hurts.
Well, that felt
He literally explained why he felt that way. Are you deaf?
Yes.
I know Nai corrected this in a text annotation, but I find it so funny that he interjects to say yes to the question of, are you deaf?
And we decided his reasoning was dumb. What sense would it make to pluck a middle stage starter Pokemon out of the evolutionary line and put it in the previous region? Mystic's only reasoning is he doesn't like the design of Thwackey. Do you not have ears, young lady?
I do not want to hear that coming from the guy who's been cutting context this whole video. Yeah, but Melon was still questioning the reasoning when it was already explained. So why question it when it's already been explained? What Melon said wasn't, I think your reasoning is stupid. It was, how does Thwackey look this way? Which was already explained. Alright, so Nai plays out the entirety of Umbris's final thoughts, which lasts for over a minute, so I'm just going to cut the final thoughts out of the video to save time.
We lacked chemistry, huh? That honestly feels a bit subjective. Or do the parts where she bites my head off and I react out of fear of her inflicting physical harm upon me not count? I don't know, felt like a passable dynamic to me.
Even if this was a dynamic that worked for you, it working would be subjective. So nice hypocritical double standard there, since you're willing to call out Umbris for making a subjective point, while simultaneously also making a subjective point. This is literally in the same interjection. Like, come on, Fox.
Your point is subjective. So now let me make a point that is also subjective.
And who says co-op partners need an equal amount of screen time in a commentary? Nas! Everyone in a collaborative commentary needs to speak in each and every interjection.
Okay, now you're just arguing in logical extremes, since Umbris never said that co-op partners have to appear in every interjection. Furthermore, if one co-op partner overshadows another, then that would just raise the question of, why is this a co-op?
Try to enunciate. I do that every single time I sit down to record a video. I do multiple takes in a recording like the one I'm doing right now to make sure I'm as clear as possible. Has it ever crossed your mind that I just might be monotone and you can't hear through it?
Being monotone and being hard to understand are two completely different concepts, and yet this point kinda lumps them together. Like, people have criticized me for being monotone in the past, but I don't think I've ever been told that I am hard to hear. Also, the word lacking would mean that the chemistry was still there. It just wasn't all that good in Umbris's opinion.
As for the mic thing, it's funny, I did try to get a new mic last year, but it turned out to be completely incompatible with my PC.
So you're willing to hold a video made in 2020 against a mic test made a couple of months ago? Do I even need to explain the issue here? Do you really expect Umbrus to be a time-traveling psychic or something? Because you're using information from 3 months ago against a video that's far older. See, this is the problem I have with some commentaries on old videos. You can certainly make a commentary on an old video, and I won't say that you can't do it, but you probably should do it in a retrospective way, since it's just not fair to hold an old video to a more modern standard. And with that being said, I don't really have final thoughts for this video, so like, you can click off the video now.